Jr., president of the Center for Security Policy and former Assistant Secretary of Defense under Ronald Reagan. Karen Henready is a Republican strategist. Welcome to you both. Great to have you here. I want to start with this idea of defense. Frank, I'll go to you first. Last night, lots of talk about the effect on defense spending of budget cuts. Are you concerned that because the super committee wasn't able to move forward, that these cuts to defense will be not just hurtful, but ultimately very bad for our nation's defense?
I am. I think what we're looking at really is not simply the hollowing out of our military, but the evisceration of vital defense capabilities. We're looking at forces that are sized below what we had at the time of World War I in the Navy. Now, as was noted last night, individually, some of the ships are far more capable, obviously, but still, we're doing this to our military in addition to failing to modernize it, in addition to failing to invest in ensuring that it is competitive with possible adversaries for the future, in addition to possibly breaking faith with the military personnel through the pensions and the benefits and the healthcare system that has made this all-volunteer force possible. We do all of that at a time when the world is becoming vastly more dangerous. I think, as you say, at our extreme peril. I was heartened that the issues were being squarely addressed. I hope there'll be a lot more of that, and frankly, a lot more clarity about how the Republicans would make things different going forward.
Frank, I'm glad we have you here tonight because I think this is an important topic, and you are well armed to talk about it. Karen, I'm going to talk to you for a second. I want to start with a couple of thoughts here, give you a sense of the flavor of the debate, starting with Romney on defense. Here's what he had to say about the potential cuts.
The first $350 billion, what did they cut? They stopped the F-22. They delayed aircraft carriers. They stopped the Navy cruiser system. They said long-range Air Force bombers aren't going to be built. They're trying to cut our troops by 50,000. The list goes on. They're cutting programs, they're cutting the capacity of America to defend itself.
Now, what's interesting here is that Newt Gingrich didn't necessarily agree. Listen.
There are some things you can do in defense that are less expensive. It's clear if it takes 15 to 20 years to build a weapon system at a time when Apple changes technology every 9 months, there's something profoundly wrong with the system. So I'm not going to tell you automatically I'm going to say yes.
So, Karen, which of these arguments do you think will play best to voters?
Well, and you know, there's actually one more argument there from Ron Paul, who said, you know, look, between 2013 and 2023, the defense budget is scheduled to increase $1.7 billion with the sequestration triggers. Because of the super committee, it'll still increase $1.6 billion. So I think it's a good start. I think it's good for Republicans to actually debate what is the necessary spending. Certainly when Secretary Gates was at defense, he said, look, there's a lot of things that we're spending money on that we don't need to spend money on. The F-35 alternative engine, for instance, he said was unnecessary. That was a lot of money that could have gone elsewhere. So I think that Republicans need to look at defense and say, is there a way that we can spend money smarter? Is there a way that we can be quicker, faster, more agile? I think that Newt Gingrich certainly has a lot of ideas about how to revamp the Department of Defense. And, you know, and it's good to have these ideas out there as opposed to what we've done today. What we're doing today is what we have been doing for the past 3 decades, and that's the vein in which we should continue. I think it's good to have these conversations about how can we modernize.
But Karen, beyond that, I mean, beyond having the conversation, what do you think is going to play best with the American people?
Well, I think, to be honest, a lot depends on what happens between now and the elections. You know, national security is not the #1 issue. We all know that. It's not 2004 all over again. And I think that when you get into a general election, get past the primary, I think that the general electorate and the independent voters are they're not going to say, let's write a blank check to the military. I think they want to know that the money we're spending is being spent wisely.
Frank, go right ahead.
Here's the trouble. I think we are witnessing a dynamic around the world that is likely to lead to war, quite possibly between now and the next election. One thing we know about the electorate is if in fact something very bad happens, a 9/11, for example, suddenly all of the conventional wisdom about how important this is out the window. And here's the real trouble. At that point, I think public, both independents, Reagan Democrats, women, Tea Partiers, and of course Republicans are going to say, who was it who was arguing against the sorts of self-inflicted wounds that we are now undertaking? Who was it who was, if you will, the Churchill of our time? And who were the Chamberlain enablers in this present moment? And I pray the Republicans are going to be lining up with the Churchills and not the Chamberlains.
Well, Frank, you make a great point. I really want to move on now, though.
To cut defense spending, that you're a Chamberlain. I think that's a pretty strong statement to say.
And I'm saying it advisedly.
All right. Boy, I love it when people disagree on the show. Go. Okay. I want to move on to immigration, though, because there was a real batting of the heads on immigration. It started with Newt Gingrich, who said, hey, look, people who've been in this country for a long time illegally, they need to be forgiven. There needs to be a way forward for those people. Here's Newt.
If you've been here 25 years and you got 3 kids and 2 grandkids, you've been paying taxes and obeying the law, you belong to a local church, I don't think we're going to separate you from your family, uproot you forcefully, and kick you out.
Frank, what do you say?
Well, I have a lot of respect for Newt, but I think on this one he's recommending that we simply tolerate people who violate the law. I don't know where you draw the line. If you say, is it 25 years? Is it 20 years? Is it 10 years? Is it 5 years? At some point, you are simply embracing the idea that you will reward people who have violated the law at some point in the past. And I think there are ways in which you can accommodate the fact that you want those people in this country, but they have to come here legally, and I think that means going out of the country to get back in properly.
Karen, I would play another shot, but I'd rather hear from you. We had a response from Romney. Romney saying it's rule of law. You know, we have to have these rules because if we don't have rules in place, then everybody wants to come to this country. They all come in illegally and then they stay. Who is right here?
Well, you're seeing some backtracking, which is not unusual right now. I'm not going to say who's right and wrong. The voters will decide that. But it's very interesting. This is an interesting discussion that's taking place because Romney is firmly within the viewpoint of the Republican primary voters. I think Newt Gingrich is taking a view that is much longer term, looking at a general electorate, realizing there's no way to deport 10 to 15 million people. It's simply not likely to happen. It's not going to happen, period. So, you know, and the other thing I think, a point that was made by David Frum, a Republican, this morning is, you know, there's also another motive here, which is a lot of donors in agriculture, the hotel industry, and, you know, the meat processing industry. They need that labor. They absolutely need that labor. They want that labor, and I think that they are willing to put their money in the pocket of the candidate who is willing to take Newt's position. I think this is also a good opportunity for Newt.
Well,
that is, well, politics
and Frank's
is cynical,
right too,
though, isn't it?
Listen, quick response from you guys. We're totally out of time. But it seems to me that the real issue voters are going to be operating on is the economy, jobs, the economy.
Right.
Yes or no, Frank? Agree or disagree?
Unless they recognize what's happening around the world, which is that they better be paying attention to the dangers we're facing and the national security imperatives.
Karen.
No, it's the economy. When people can't find, when they've gone a year or 2 years without a job, when they are paying more, making less, this is a great deal of lack of confidence in the economy. That is their #1 concern right now, and that's what this election will be like, unless there is a major attack on the United States between now and the election.
You know, wide-ranging topics. You guys did a fantastic job. Frank and Karen, thank you so much for coming on tonight. Have a great Thanksgiving.
You too.
All right, now here's your chance to weigh in on our question tonight. Should long-term illegal immigrants, should they get a